Okay, again, my name is Dave Keagle, Best Option Insurance. And I wanted to talk today about flood. That seems to be keen on a lot of people's minds. They say that we got about 225% above normal snowfall last year, this last winter, and it's the most in 35 years. So we're a little worried about rain.
Still snowing.
Now the weather was cool this week, but we got more snow. So is it a win or lose? I'm not sure. So I will. Okay. My agenda for today is I'm going to give you a definition of what a flood is, and then we'll talk about who is in a flood zone. What is a basement? What is a crawl space? And what is an elevated dwelling? Because each one of these different definitions depends upon what kind of coverage you will have, what your premium is going to be, whether you can, everybody can get insurance, but it might be higher depending upon the structure. Then we'll talk about what is covered in a flood and what's not covered in a flood. And then a few facts to remember, then a little Q&A at the end. Now, FEMA is the underwriter for all flood insurance. So it doesn't matter who you go to, which carrier you have, FEMA is the underwriter. So you're always going to get the same price no matter who you go to. And FEMA is a government agency. So any of the manuals and documentation is government legal stuff. It's a little confusing and it's hard to read, hard to understand. As Jim and I know, because we sat down and went through it pretty much with a fine-tooth comb in some parts of it so we can better understand it.
The definitions are incomprehensible.
So first of all, the definition of a flood is a general and a temporary condition of partial or complete inundation of 2 or more acres of normally dry land, or 2 or more properties, one of which is yours. Okay? That would constitute a flood. It could be an overflow of inland or tidal wave waters. It could be unusual and rapid accumulation of runoff surface water from any source. It can be mud flow, and it could be the collapse of a substance of land along the shores, which causes like a tidal wave. So all of those is a definition of a flood. And so it doesn't have to be that a river floods and runs into your house. It could be runoff from your house because of heavy rains, and then the water's back up into the house. So a lot of different ways that you can say it is a flood.
Was the mudslide a flood?
A mudslide is a flood. Okay, who's in a flood zone?
Everyone.
Everyone is, exactly.
Really?
Everyone is in a flood zone. Even if you're on top of a mountain, you're in a flood zone. Okay? Now there's 2 different types of areas. They call it an A zone and a Z zone, or excuse me, a V as in Victor zone. If you're rated in either one of those zones, that means you have a 1% chance of being flooded each year. Okay? Then there's B, C, F, D, and A99 zones. And what that means is you have a 0.2% of a chance of a flood at your residence or dwelling. Okay? But everybody could be in the flood zone.
What's Barbie?
Pardon me?
I said, what percent is Barbie?
She got 100% this year.
Yeah, I know.
Last year.
But she actually was not designated, so she was an X.
Wow.
My office is designated the 100-year floodplain, but my house is not.
Right.
Wow.
Now, of course, with this last flood and the floods across the country and Sandy, They're looking at, now they're gonna be doing some remapping,
Hmm.
okay?
When FEMA does this, they're the ones that map, that tell you
Yes.
who you are.
Right. Yeah, they do the mapping, they do all the definitions.
Is it hard to argue with them and say, hey, I don't think I am in a flood zone, or is that?
No, because you have, to prove it, you would get an elevation certificate.
Uh-huh,
You have a surveyor come out,
uh-huh.
take a bunch of surveys and numbers, and there's a bunch of formulas
Mhm.
that will say whether you are or are not in a high, medium, or low
Mm.
zone.
So you can fight with them, but it costs and it's different.
Yeah, if they say you're in a high and you think, I don't think I'm in a high, I think I'm in a low, the flood certificate would prove that.
I see.
So what is the definition of a basement? Okay, we all can kind of visualize what a basement is, right? Well, it's an area of the building, any sunken room or sunken portion of a room having its floor more than 2 feet below the ground level and more than 5 feet below the next level, floor level, okay? So basically, if you go, and it is, all 4 walls are below ground, okay?
So if you have
So-
a walkout basement, then it's not a basement?
Yeah, and I'll get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be all 4 walls are underground to be a basement, okay? And you have to be able to, if you're 5 feet tall, you have to be able to stand up in it.
So otherwise, it's a crawl space, right? If it's under 5 feet?
Cellar,
Or cellar,
Yeah.
dungeon.
Yeah.
Basement, a hole in the ground in which you put stuff that you never see again.
So this is a basement?
Clutter capture.
This
Oh, yeah.
would not be a basement because of grade level. So if you look at the windows, we're probably only the lower foot of this space we're in is below grade.
Yeah, it would, you've got more than 2 feet below ground level. I mean, they have to find out where the ground level is.
Uh-huh.
And that'd be from the highest point of the ground level too. So
Yeah,
maybe on this
down
side
to the
it's a little
floor.
bit higher.
Hmm.
And then has to be, this floor has to be 5 feet below this one. I mean, it has to be more than 5 feet
Gotcha.
below that one. So it might constitute to be,
Do we get chocolate if we get the answers to these questions?
Maybe some free flood insurance.
yeah. And it gets very, very technical. Because I'm not going into the real technical part because it has to be vented, it has to be so many square feet of vent to so many square feet of basement or crawl space. So there's a lot of different formulas. Now, okay, what is a crawl space then? Okay, a space is that is no more than 2 feet below the ground level and is no more than 5 feet below the floor of the next level up. Okay?
No, no less than.
Is no,
It could be
what did I
8 feet,
say?
it could be 8 feet to the next
No
level.
more than 5 feet below. So if I'm 5 foot tall and I go in and the space is crawl space, but it is no more than 2 feet below ground level. And if I'm 5 feet tall and I stand up and it just touches my head, the floor of the, above, then that's a crawl space. If it's more than that, it's a basement. Okay? Or basement or an enclosure. And we'll talk about what an enclosure is. So an elevated enclosure is a building that has no basement and that has its lowest floor, elevated floor, above ground level, or any building that does not have all 4 walls below ground level. A walkout basement has at least one side open to the outside ground level, is considered an elevated enclosure rather than a basement. Okay. Now, that also, so these definitions are going to determine your premium, but also what kind of coverage you're able to get on a flood.
So you have an elevated enclosure?
I have to go outstairs to go out the door, upstairs in the yard. So I'm not a complete walkout, so I'm considered a basement.
How far away do the stairs have to be?
How far, well, you've got to be able to walk straight out. You have to be on the ground level when you walk out.
Yeah. For a ways.
Yeah. Okay. So now what is covered in the flood? Okay, now, when you get flood insurance, there are two types of coverages that you can get. And I would suggest that you would get both. It's the dwelling and the personal property. Okay? We're going to talk about what's covered with the dwelling right now. And things that are covered are, now this is a property located above the ground level. Okay? And it would be awnings, canopies, your blinds, built-in dishwashers, microwaves, carpet installed over an unfinished floor, central air conditioners, walk-in freezers, furnaces, garbage disposal, hot water heaters, light fixtures, outdoor antennas, cupboards, bookcases, paneling, plumbing fixtures, pumps, ranges, cooking stoves, ovens, refrigerators, wall mirrors that are permanently attached and installed, wallpaper, fire sprinkler systems, elevated equipment. So we're talking about a ranch style with no basement. This would be covered under the dwelling.
Hardwood floors.
No. No. In fact, what they say is, that's why I brought all this here, because
I knew they didn't cover it in the basement,
Right.
but I thought they might have covered it upstairs.
No, not hardwood floors. At least,
But I'm sorry, we should let you
Yeah.
finish.
that's another one of those definitions.
That's a personal
It
concern.
is unless this, unless this, unless this.
They covered the hardwood floors at the office.
Okay.
In a commercial application.
Yeah. And they made it on a home, but you have to meet certain conditions in order for it to be that way.
Well, this is a subject matter for like a 20-hour discussion.
It really
so
is.
I'll shut up and stop asking questions.
No, it's fine. There's a lot of information. I mean, it's, like I said, it goes into a lot of detail. Don't have the time for that. So what's covered in the flood? Property in a building enclosure has specific zones or basements regardless of the zone if it's post-firm. Now there's pre-firm, post-firm. When FEMA took over and they decided that they're going to be the underwriters of flood insurance, then as of that date, anything that is built after that is post-firm. Anything before that is pre-firm. Okay? And it depends upon when your community has bought into it, the flood plain plan and everything. So that would determine post and pre also. So things that are covered in this would be cisterns and the water in them, drywall for wall ceilings, and I'm going to give a little more detail on that. It's drywall for walls and ceilings in a basement, and the cost of labor to nail it, unfinished and unfloated, and not taped to the framing. So, you have a basement, and you have drywall. If it's all washed out, they'll put up basic drywall. That's it. You're responsible then for the taping, the texturing, all that kind of stuff. But they'll put back the walls. Okay? Electrical junctions and circuit breakers, electrical outlets, central air conditioners, fuel tanks and the fuel that's in them, furnaces, non-flammable insulation, hot water heaters, solar energy systems, the pumps and the tanks, stairways attached to the building, sump pumps, water softeners, well water tanks and pumps, required utility connections, footings, foundations, posts, pilings, and other foundation walls required to support the building. Okay. So that is covered under dwelling. Okay, so how about personal property located above the ground level? Okay, it's the air conditioning units, portable and window type, carpets not permanently installed over unfinished flooring, carpets over finished flooring, clothes washers and dryers, cookout grills, food freezers other than walk-ins and the food that's in them, and portable microwave ovens, portable dishwashers, your clothes, all your personal items would be covered above ground. Now, the limitations come in when we talk about basement versus walkout basement, cellar, crawl space. Personalized property in a building enclosure, specific zones or in a basement regardless of the zone, host firm, is limited to air conditioning units, portable or window type, clothes washers and dryers, food freezers and other walk-ins, and food in the freezers. Boom. That's it.
In the basement, you're saying?
Well, yeah,
Oh, and-
other than
yeah.
what I read before,
Right,
that you and I found the clause in here because I had to talk to the underwriters because
yeah,
it was buried in the documentation.
okay, got it. Dwelling versus.
That it's stairways and the drywall, but not the finished drywall. Okay, some facts to remember. And first of all, there's a 30-day waiting period after payment has been received by the flood insurance. So you get flood insurance, you pay by either check or debit or credit card in full. Then, once they receive that, 30 days, and then you're covered. Now, there are exceptions, and it'd be like if there is a loan on a home, a new purchase on a home, we can move that through within 2 days.